Mary Ellen Beverage, November 8th, 1968, Des Moines, Iowa. So April of 1986, I joined the Guard under the split option program, and my dad had to sign parental consent because I was 17. So I went to basic training between my junior and my senior year, and then I went back and finished high school. So I came in as a 71 Lima, which was a clerk typist, and so I would do administrative reviews and things like that on drill weekend. Well, that unit tends to have a big ego still, because I've interacted with them many times in my career since. And they just, if you weren't an MP in that unit, you just didn't get treated quite the same. And so my days at the 186, although I have some fond memories, I knew I would not last in the Guard. I made a transition just because I had been working out here as a temporary technician into the full-time workforce as an active Guard reserve or AGR soldier, switched units, and I loved the Guard again. And so I think there were just times in my career that it was like that. But I can honestly say I loved the Iowa National Guard. I still love the Iowa National Guard. And given the opportunity, I would do it again every day of the week. With the 186 MPs, I was fortunate in 1988 to go to South Korea for 3 weeks for a team spirit. And that just happened to be the year that Korea in Seoul was hosting the Olympics. And so there was just kind of a fun vibe in Korea at the time. The Iowa Guard did a partnership with Russia for, I think, 10 years. I came in kind of at the latter part of it, and I had hosted a delegation. I came back from a school, and they had shuffled some people around, and I got put in as the state partnership program manager for the state of Iowa. And so within the first 2 months in the job, I hosted a delegation of 10 Russians that came over to, get exposed to our Homeland Security emergency management programs. And so I put their schedule together and coordinated for all the places that they would go during those 10 days and escorted them around. And then I was able to co-host a delegation out in New Hampshire. And then I co-hosted another delegation here in Iowa after I had moved to a different job. So I got to interact with 3 different delegations, 2 here in Iowa, 1 in New Hampshire. And the leadership said, hey, all that hard work doing that, we promise that the next trip we take to Russia, you'll be on the delegation. And so I was afforded the opportunity to go to Russia for 10 days, and it was incredible. I was the youngest member of the delegation and the only female. I have a little photo book over there of some of the stuff that they had given us. And the gentleman from the embassy had said, Mary, they're either going to just act like you don't exist because you're a woman, or they're going to absolutely love you. And while we were in Moscow, it was kind of, and that was fine. I was still there and, experiencing everything. We got off, and right away we had a driver and, warm greeting. We stayed at the Metropole in Moscow. It was a very, very beautiful hotel, completely different experience. And it was, I don't know, maybe the equivalent of a block or 2 from the Red Square. And so we got in really late at night, but the next morning when we went outside, it was just stunning. You hear the Red Square, and everything in March and in Russia is kind of drab and dreary because of the winter, and it just looks kind of dirty. But then the Red Square it's really red and beautiful. And then that next night we went out to a restaurant, and the Gum shopping mall is right there, and it's lit up and beautiful. And the cathedrals, you could see how brightly they were painted in the skyline, and it was beautiful. But by the time we moved to Stavropol, which is a sister city to Des Moines, and where we were going to spend the majority of our 10 days, I knew people from these other trips. And so I got treated like a queen. But it was just a real neat experience. And I got long stem roses twice, once from the governor of Stavropol and once from the folks that I had worked with before. So And then the third time that I went overseas was to Afghanistan in 2010. I deployed for 13 months with the 734th Agribusiness Development Team to Kunar Province. Our base was very small. FOB was the perimeter, and you would kind of backtrack at the ECP or the entrance control point. So like if I went out for a run and I ran the perimeter, I'd have to backtrack a little bit, but I could get a 1 mile loop. Half the FOB was CIA or Special Forces, and we weren't allowed to go. We could go behind their encampment, but our space was very, very small. And I would say on an average day, we didn't have 200 coalition forces on that base. It was just a small place. We didn't have a PX or anything like that, and so they had little shops. We called them, the Haji Mart, but all local stuff. But soldiers could buy a few things if they needed it. My job was the operations officer for the team, and so I coordinated all of our missions, wrote all of our orders. If we needed any extra like air support or ground support from the combat troops, then we would do that, or get trip tickets to allow our vehicles to leave the base. Base defense, the coordination of all the base defense stuff was mine. I had 3 medics, they worked for me. The security force worked for me. So basically 2/3 plus of the team worked directly for me in some capacity. And the team before us, they did a little bit of women's missions, or FET, female engagement team stuff, not the knock on the door, go in and search the people, but they would do outreach to the women within Kunar Province. And my commander afforded me the opportunity to continue that. And it was really, really cool. We had 5 females on the team initially, and one of them went home medically. But the other 4 women, for the entire deployment, really got into the female missions. And as the senior ranking female in the province, my side shuffle was to personally mentor the Director of Women's Affairs for Kunar Province. And so I would meet with Nasima regularly, or her staff, to determine what kinds of things we could do for the women of Kunar. We had shuras, which are basically town hall meetings where they would sit down and tell us what they needed. Oh, my cow is sick. Okay, do you want education? Do you want medicine? How can we meet your need? And so through these processes, we did a whole bunch of different functions, which I'm most proud of, the female engagement stuff that we did. We did, before Darla came home on medical, she was doing poultry missions. So she would help set up like turnkey operations for like this mother to have layers and fryers, chickens that are going to lay eggs and chickens that they can eat, and teach the sustainability of that, how they can reinvest back in their business. Every one of our projects, if we would, whatever the project was, and I'll use poultry as an example, we would say, okay, Nasima, we don't want to saturate this village over here, so we want maybe one from here, right? Bring them in, do a localized training, and we will teach them how to do this mission. And then we will set them up with all of the things necessary for the business. And we will teach them how they can feed their family with this, but then how they have their husbands take it to market and sell it, or trade it for the things that their family needs to increase their household income, right? Because the average household income in Kunar at the time was about $500 a year. So very poor, very uneducated. And if we could teach a family, the mother who has the most influence over the children, the little boys that are going to the Taliban to get money, if we could teach her a way to double or triple their household income, maybe they wouldn't need to go and do that. That was the theory, at least. And so we did poultry, we did soap making, we did carpet weaving, we applied for some education grants. We were in the process of doing a goat mission where they could collect the hair, make cheese. I had different organizations, like the team before us was from California. And so maybe they knew of an organization, a church or whatever, that would send stuff to give to the locals. Well, then they continued to send stuff. And there was a woman, Joanna, that was just lovely. And she'd orchestrate these little baby layette sets and blankets and things like that. And she would send them, and I would always send her a thank you and let her know how we dispersed them. And I guess I had forgotten that when I got back home, I had sent her a care package with a scarf and a ring and some things that I had picked up over there. And it was neat going back and seeing all the different organizations that, or people that I had never met, still have never met, that were sending things for our soldiers or for the locals over there. It was really neat. So yeah, lots of correspondence. And we would get care packages. I went out to Amazon and did a wish list for the things that I needed or thought I needed to be more comfortable. And so family could narrow down what exactly to send. Otherwise, we had a little MWR, morale, welfare, and recreation room, the TV and stuff in it. We had these bins. And so if you got extra shampoo, you'd put it in there. So soldiers could just come and take that as they needed it. Well, that thing got so full, then we would donate it to, you know, the women or whatever. It was very, very rewarding. And I think that's probably one of the things I just want to know. Did any of it stick? And I'll probably never have the opportunity to know, but the team that followed on, because it wasn't a part of our mission statement, their females opted to not continue it. So whatever the team before us did and we built off of, and we really did, because we reached out to the females on the other FOBs in the battle space, and if their commander was okay with it, they would come. And so we would go do missions throughout the province through all these women, but the team after didn't want to do it. The Omaha Herald came to Afghanistan while we were there and went out on some of the missions. And so, I don't have my glasses, but this one, okay, so this is, it's from the Perry paper, but they got the photos from the Omaha Herald. And this right here, I was meeting with some of the gals on the soap making project. And soap making in Afghanistan is not like a factory. It's a wood fire with a skillet and lard, and they stir it and pour it into molds and wrap it in paper. So that was one of our turnkey businesses. And then we were just at a meeting, and we had a really rough week. This is my female medic, and we had a couple of mass casualty events on the FOB. And then a friend of mine put this together, and these are just some of the pictures. So we were out doing a female engagement team here, and Special Forces did the outer cordon, and then the females did the inner cordon, and we had a medical clinic, and we did 2 of those. And so this is me there, and these are just kind of a series, but this gal, she's probably about 14, brought my camera and I was showing them pictures. They don't have mirrors, so they don't see themselves, and so they were looking at that, and we were just making faces and playing games with the kids. And so that's what this is. And you know, the little kids are looking at their pictures. I don't know, maybe this is better. And here we're giving them suckers. And I got to hold a baby. Oh, it was such a gift, because you don't really think about how many, I mean, I'm a hugger, and I would, you know, we would hug, but you know, you don't realize how much physical contact you normally have with your family and your friends or pets or holding children until you don't get that. And so I got to hold this baby. It was very exciting. And here they're making naan. They're the unleavened bread, which is a main source of food for them. And they were teaching me, and you can see how flat hers is and how mine is not, and they were laughing at me. This was at a different one, and we had a box of toys that one of those organizations had donated. And so I'm playing with the kids and giving them cars or stuffed animals. So they're getting their gifts there. And you'll notice this person is in a burqa. I should have brought the burqa. But so this is a female that's puberty. So she's got to have hit puberty, and she is still child rearing age. So you have no idea, but she's between puberty and menopause. Because once they can no longer have children, they're not worth anything, and so they can show their face again. And then this, I love this picture because, well, you can see I've got this monkey hanging off of my 9mm. And the kids were not afraid of the fact that I had a 9mm and an M4 rifle. They were afraid of that monkey because monkeys, there are a lot of monkeys over there and they are mean. And I like this little guy. He went through a process of inching up closer and closer, and eventually he was on my lap, and I'd have brought him home if I could have. It was just, these two missions were really just amazing because of the interaction with, I mean, we interacted with people, but it was a different level of interaction with them. But just look at the terrain. So, here I'm trying to teach them line basics. You know what our kids learn in preschool? They don't know line basics. They just mob you. And here they're looking at the photo again. And like these are houses back here made out of stone. Very, very poor. And in my mind, when I was there, I always just thought, well, this is so primitive. Is this how it would have been in Jesus's day? And a year and a half ago, I went to Israel, and I would say that this is even more primitive. And there's my little guy. I mean, you know, there's professional favorite memories, and there's the giggle favorite memories, and you know, I distinctly remember traveling with my battle buddy Melissa Brumley to through Ali Salim and the whole drop into Jalalabad nightmare, and we were just so filthy. Our feet were filthy. We felt funky, and we just wanted to wipe our feet before we laid in the bunk. And I remember sitting on the edge of the bed, you know, the cots, and the only wipes she could find were feminine hygiene wipes, and we were washing our feet with them. And she had a smashed Ghirardelli raspberry chocolate bar, and so we're washing our feet with feminine hygiene wipes and eating this chocolate bar and laughing like, you know, crazy people. But I think it was just the reality of where we were and what we were, you know, facing really alone, because it was just the two of us traveling now. I don't know. So that's a very fond memory, and we giggle about that. Professionally, I think my fondest memory is a culmination of all those female engagement missions, because although I think our armed forces is amazing and does a lot of things right, I think we missed the mark when we missed 50% of the population, and we didn't do intentional, direct empowerment of the women. Because, like I said earlier, if we could teach the mother, who has the greatest influence on the children, could we have slowed things down while we were doing the kinetic? I don't know. We'll never know, I guess. Would I do it again? There are parts of it I would not want to do again, but you can't cherry pick what parts of it, because the bad comes with the good, and it makes you better and stronger. So absolutely I would do it. And I would go to Afghanistan tomorrow if I could. I mean, I would.